Good morning. Are you ready to change the person signing your check? I'm talking to you. Yeah, you. Stick around. I'll be right back with Lara to discuss strategies for relaunching your career during COVID-19 in Trinidad and Tobago.
Your strategy has to involve your mindset, and your strategy then involves the actions that you take to move you from where you are to where you want to be.
I'll start with what Visa isn't, right? Visa doesn't issue credit card. We don't issue credit. So Visa doesn't do that, which surprises a lot of people.
We'll use a phrase like, things changed, but things don't change. People change things. All the legislation that has been passed, somebody advocated for that. And so International Women's Day is to commemorate that history of women making change.
Several of the banks have started to migrate their existing debit card portfolio to chip and pin EMV technology. So the SMEs are going to benefit from a wide range of customers who previously did not have a credit card but only had a debit card.
Good morning and welcome to the live series Straight Off the Bat, a show that covers the need to revive, survive and adapt to this new normal of COVID-19. Join us on Thursdays as we speak to individuals across multiple industries who will help you understand financial literacy and education. If you're joining us from Facebook, thank you so much. We appreciate you. We see you. Make sure to do this thing now, like and follow us to continue seeing this content, because I can assure you not seeing this anywhere else. Today, we're discussing strategies for relaunching your career during COVID-19 in Trinidad and Tobago. I have the great privilege to talk to Ms. Lara Quentrall-Thomas. She is the founder of Regency, Recruitment and Resources. With over 30 years of experience in the human resources industry, she can help you with professional networking, because I know a lot of us have a problem with that. I know, especially now in digital space, how do you do that? Resume writing, which apparently is just a known issue across the human resource industry, and business etiquette, which is very important for you to know. She also possesses a master's in business administration, and she has certificates in HR, contract law, behavioral economics, and critical thinking. She wears many hats and is the founding president of the Association of Female Executives of Trinidad and Tobago, and an Employment and Labor Relations Committee member of the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Commerce since 2019. And also, something I just learned about her, she loves to read murder mystery books and watch the controversial Ted Bundy movie on Netflix, which tells me she seems to love the human psyche, and we plan to learn about that. I'm going to pick her head a little bit and learn more about what she has to say in terms of human resources. So welcome, Lara. How are you today?
Good morning. Good morning. I am doing great. I mean, you make me sound like such a ghoul. They're like all dead bodies. And but I do think you're right. I think a lot of HR people probably enjoy that kind of story because it really does delve into the dark side of human psyche and human experience. And, you know, it's a really important and interesting thing to understand, because, you know, who knows when you see it in the workplace, right? So, yeah, thank you for welcoming me. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you.
Awesome to have you. And we want to really kind of break down in the next 55 minutes or so this space in the HR industry, specifically in Trinidad and Tobago, because, you know, we see a lot of things online. We see things that are relative to the US, but Trinidad and Tobago is a very unique space.
Indeed.
And we want to learn from you. And let's start with work environment, because it is a place now that people are trying to figure out. You know, transition is a big word, you know, transformation. What is the trends that you're seeing within that work environment that's happening right now?
Well, obviously, one of the, I don't want to say benefits, because I know COVID has been a very traumatic experience for millions of people. But I think one of the real silver linings of this entire experience has been the move to remote work, flexible work, work sharing, flexi time arrangements, all of this sort of thing, which, we've been talking about for a long time in HR. And in some parts of the world, it's been happening for a long time, but Trinidad was really behind the curve. And, we've all sat in traffic for 5 hours to try and get somewhere. And people who have to drop their kids in the morning and pick them up have horrors to get in for 8 a.m. And so all of a sudden, we were working at home and working from home and doing remote work. And I think for many of us, myself and my company included, we're going to probably carry on doing some version of this after COVID, whenever that happens. And I don't know that there'll ever be an after COVID, because it seems to keep mutating and hitting us for six. But I love the fact that the pandemic has forced employers and employees and all of us to really rethink, how do we do the work that we're paid to do in a productive way, in a meaningful way, but just not physically at the office anymore. And, there were some professions that had been able to do it for some time, but for a lot of people, going to the office every single day was just a normal thing. That's how we grew up. That's what we knew. So the whole thrust about remote work, moving online for meetings and presentations and training has been remarkable. I was saying to somebody the other day, I'd never heard of Zoom before COVID. I mean, we'd use Skype a little bit, but never heard of Zoom. And now, I'm a Zoom expert, as many of us are. So I love that. I love the fact that the technology that was there. I mean, imagine if this had happened 30 years ago, we may have really had a very different experience. And that so many employees and employers were able to transition to remote work. The flip side of that is that for many of us, it's actually ended up extending our workday. So we have found ourselves working longer, later, sometimes even at the weekends, because now you're kind of accessible 24/7. And whereas before, your cutoff point was 4 or 5 o'clock, now people are reaching out to connect with you later on. So in a funny way, it's actually made us work harder, some of us in some professions. And that has led to, I think, Zoom fatigue. There are some days my eyes burn at the end of the day because I've been on the computer for 8 hours straight on Zoom. And, it's lovely to interact with people from around the world and deliver workshops to participants around the world, but boy, it does get exhausting. So good and bad, I think the workplace environment has changed, and I hope it changes forever, because we need to use technology to be a more productive society, to deliver services to citizens more efficiently. I hope that the government service, all of the ministries, move online, start delivering services online, so that we don't have to, I went to pay some VAT this week, got to car park at 7 a.m, lined up at 7:30 to be let in at 8 o'clock. Those things should not be happening anymore. It's 2021. We should have all of our services for citizens online, right through to payment and delivery. So I hope that the pandemic is pushing us into the modern world where, many other countries perhaps were there already. But there has obviously been a real downside for many people have had their hours reduced, their pay reduced. And of course, we've seen that the numbers of people that have lost their jobs entirely. So the pandemic has forced us to really look at how we operate, who we hire, how we train them, how we manage them, how we evaluate performance and productivity, and how we run our businesses and connect with our customers in this new digital normal. I love it. I love what we've had to do and how we've had to evolve. But I do realize that a lot of people have been left behind. So we do have an opportunity, I think, to, bring them with us and look at jobs, look at the jobs that we have. Do we still need 15 copies of something, stapled or photocopied like we used to do? Those things should be a thing of the past now. So I'm cautiously optimistic that this is pushing us into the modern era.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to the Zoom fatigue, because I've been in the tech industry for a decade, and one of the things that I wasn't measuring was the fact that I had a social life. So now I'm just like, well, I'm not doing anything anyway, so I could meet you. Yeah. And there was a day that I had literally like 5 meetings, and I was just like, what did I do that? Why did I book 5 meetings in one day? And like you, I just felt this just like, okay, I need to be mindful. I actually have to have me time. Mm-hmm. And I'm also getting feedback from a lot of people that their employers are expecting them to log on and show their face at 8 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock in the morning. And for a lot of people, you know, everybody have different degrees of being impacted by the lockdown. But when it comes to somebody who may be in a job but are not satisfied and ready to look for something new, where should that person start?
So the job market, certainly in Trinidad and Tobago and sort of globally, but the market was really starting to get quite tight even before COVID. As you know, Trinidad and Tobago is very impacted by oil and gas prices. When the oil companies do well, we all prosper. And when they don't, we all suffer. So there was definitely a contraction in number of vacancies, job movements before COVID. COVID just made it, 50 times, 100 times worse. But now I would say since about March, April of this year, at Regency, we have seen things start to pick up. So we have definitely seen the number of vacancies start to pick up, maybe not so much on the permanent side. So a lot of employers are sort of putting one toe in the water a little cautiously. So there's a lot more temporary and contract project opportunities perhaps than permanent jobs. But I would say to people, the first thing you have to do is you have to be networking everywhere that you can. And yes, it's virtual. So you've got to make sure that your social media profiles are all properly curated and up to date. There's a feature, for example, on LinkedIn where you can actually indicate that you're open to opportunities. I think it's a sort of a tick or something like that. So you can let the virtual world know, hey, I'm looking, I'm available, once it doesn't, cause you any problems with your employer. But networking on LinkedIn is phenomenal. There's some great groups depending on your discipline, depending on the industry that you're interested in. So you don't just stay in your own sector, but you look. So if perhaps you're in banking, but you'd quite like to make a shift across to technology sector, then start to network and talk to and engage with people in that sector. Look for HR professionals who are in that sector and reach out to them and ask for advice on what it takes to transition from one sector to the other or one job or career to the other. So the virtual networking, and of course, as an extension of that, through COVID, we've all attended 4 million webinars and online programs. And, I've done tours of Moscow. I have done webinars on, vaccination protocol. I mean, all sorts of wonderful different things. But in those webinars, conferences, workshops, you also have an opportunity to network. Put something in the comments, ask a question, let people know you're looking. So there's really, even though you're at home, I think there's really no reason why you can't be networking. So that's the first thing I would say. The second is you have to be hyper vigilant to opportunities. Get the online newspapers. Many firms still publish vacancies in the newspapers, in the business and career sections. Of course, there are online job boards. There are agencies like mine that post vacancies. So if you're looking for a job, that is now your job. So your job is now to find a job. So you treat it as that. You get organized, you get disciplined. If you're unemployed looking for work, then every day set an alarm, set a schedule, wake up, get a coffee, check the job boards, go and have a look at what vacancies are online, get onto social media, see who's advertising. LinkedIn, there's constant stream of jobs locally. I'm talking about people that I network with constantly post jobs. There are jobs in the UN system. There are jobs in some of the large conglomerates here in Trinidad. So you have to treat this now like a job, and you keep proper records. You make a note of who you've applied to, which job, what day, etc. And always follow up. Say thank you, show appreciation if you're lucky enough to get an interview. Again, follow up, make sure you let them know you're interested. So in a nutshell, if you're looking for a job, that now becomes your job.
Hello?
Yes,
I thought you were stuck.
Technology. No, sorry,
I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, I took a breath.
Yeah, I want to just add to what you said with the LinkedIn, because within your profile, obviously, your employer, if you are actually employed, this is a different situation. But you within your profile, there's an actual I'm open to work. So it's in your profile, and it's green and it's very specific. So definitely a place for folks to go and search for jobs. So
Yeah.
what we're gonna do, because we're gonna go on a quick break, but before we do that, I wanna put it out there, the question about resumes, which some people call CVs, curriculum vitae, back in the day, now we call it resumes. And I've seen quite a few horrible ones in my time. Even mine, when I look back at some of my old ones, I'm like, what was I thinking? We want to ask Lara some questions, some very specific questions, as how we can get better, because to do all that work and to make your job search a job and then to land that interview, well, to actually land the interview, you actually have to submit something. So we want to ask about better ways for your resume as well as cover letter, because I have a real controversial question on that. Like, what's the point of it?
Okay.
But we will be right back after this. And welcome back. Thank you for joining us today. We are Straight Off the Bat, a show that covers the need to survive and adapt to the new normal of COVID-19. Today, we're discussing strategies for relaunching your career during COVID-19 in Trinidad and Tobago with Miss Lara Quentrall-Thomas. And you're not going to find these conversations anywhere else, so make sure you like and follow us. And today is the first time we're on LinkedIn Live. Yay! LinkedIn Live is a feature that is not available to everybody, but LinkedIn said, hey, this quality content, you can surely go live. So if you are watching this on LinkedIn, make sure to like and follow. And if you are on Facebook and watching this and you need a job, you should probably head over to LinkedIn. So we are talking about, looking at strategies for employment. And we're here with Miss Lara Quentrall-Thomas. She's the founder of Regency, Recruitment and Resources, with decades of experience in the human resource industry. I feel like she can help you. And specifically, we want to talk about resumes.
Lovely.
With that 30 years of experience, give us the top 2 mistakes you see in resumes.
Okay, so first of all, I want to say that a resume and a CV are not the same thing.
Oh, stand corrected.
Right, so first lesson of the day. A CV, your curriculum vitae, is the story of your life. So your CV gets bigger and bigger as you progress through your career. Every time you get a new qualification, a new job, a new project, etc. So your CV can be 40 pages, 50 pages. Your resume is what you use for job hunting. So the resume is essentially a summary of the skills, achievements, accomplishments that you extract from the CV, tailored to the job you're applying for. So the most important thing to know about a resume is that you don't send the same one to every job. There are some exceptions, of course. Younger people who don't have a lot of experience, maybe just left college or just left school, their resume is probably going to be pretty much the same. But for professionals who have 10, 15, 20 years experience, you need to really tailor and customize your resume for the job, the industry. What employers are looking for are what is known as transferable skills. So you may have been an HR manager in the manufacturing sector. You're now applying for a position in a bank. What skills can transfer across to the banking sector? There are some skills that transition across industries very seamlessly. There are others that are very industry specific. So when you look at a job that you're applying for, your resume should be tailored to that job description, to the vacancy specifically. They're looking for X. I may not have X, but I have Y, which is nearly as good, and this is why, and I will explain it. A resume is forward focused. A CV is backward looking. So a CV is history, everything I've ever done in my life. A resume is, these are the skills, the top 5 things I have that I think you, Mr. Employer A, or you, Mr. Employer B, should interview me for. This is why I will add value. This is why I'm the right person to meet for this particular job at this time. So essentially, every time you apply for a job, you should be using a different resume. You may move information around, you may highlight different achievements, different skills, but it's a dynamic document, unlike the CV, which is really quite static and you just sort of add information to. What we recommend is that if you get invited for an interview, that's when you submit your CV, and then they'll get all 400 pages of your entire life story. The exception to this rule is academic recruitment. People who are applying for positions in academia, to be a professor or a lecturer, that kind of thing, very often are asked for a CV up front and not a resume. So it is important to understand the difference. It's important to understand what employers want when they ask for it. I think most people don't know that there is a difference, but for us, certainly when you're applying for a job, we will specify if we want a CV or a resume. So resume,
Wow.
skills focused, forward focused. Here's what I'm selling. It's almost like a brochure of, you know, top 5 things you should know about me, and then meet me and I'll give you my CV. So there you go.
Well, I mean, even if I was Googling, I would be Googling for the wrong thing, because that's worth their money in gold now. I mean,
Yeah, and
Donna
most
Walcott.
people don't know it. So that's what's so interesting.
Yes. Donna Walcott in the comments, she's like, I know now. I'm like, girl, me too, Donna. Me too. I stand corrected. We are learning these things together, right? And Deandra said the same thing on YouTube. This is news to us all. News to us all. Thank you so much for that, Lara. We needed that.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And one thing I want to say as well is that when you think about the skills that you're selling, because this is a sales document, as I say, it's an advertisement, it's a brochure. Don't just think about your work skills. Think about maybe you volunteered, maybe during COVID you were unemployed, and I would hope that you found a way to do something productive after you got over the initial trauma. Volunteering in your community, maybe you helped out at some of the vaccination sites, maybe you helped in your community, or you did some online courses. People have been doing lots of different things during COVID. Think about those and what do those skills mean to your next employer. So you may have volunteered. Let's say, for example, I spent some time at Napa helping with the vaccination drive, working on Sundays there, and engaging with members of the public, doing administrative work. That's an important skill that could be translated to a job. So it's not just your jobs, it's your other work, voluntary, community, maybe even through your church, or anything else that you've done, even a sport. Maybe during COVID you've been doing some online. I've been playing mahjong online, and mahjong is a game of strategy, and that's a useful skill. So it's not just your jobs, but it's all of the skills that you have that you think this is going to be what that employer is going to want, because I've done my research. I know what kind of people they like. I know what kind of people do well there. Let me show them why I'm the right person for them.
I don't know why that game keeps popping up, the mahjong. Is it from Japan?
It's Chinese.
Oh, it's Asia?
Chinese,
right,
yeah.
Because, I mean, side note, I'm a little obsessed with the nanny, so I watch all episodes on YouTube, and she did a fundraiser with that game, and I was like, where did this come from?
That's really good.
And it's about strategy.
It is, yeah. We actually started playing before COVID, and then when COVID hit, we started playing online. Just a group of friends and I. My grandmother used to play it. My grandfather was in the Navy and he was stationed in the Far East. They were in Singapore, and that's where she learned to play mahjong. It was very popular with expat families. My sister played, and I've learned to play. It's a really lovely game. It's lovely. It's I don't know how to describe it, but you have to really think through what your opponents are going to play. It's fun. It's not. I don't think it's quite as hardcore as chess. But the goal is to get mahjong. You have to play a certain number of tiles, and yeah, I've been really enjoying it. I should have mentioned that. That's probably the closest I get to an organized hobby.
Well, I mean, in the gaming world, which is a multi-billion-dollar industry, that might be something you put on your resume. Which, by the way, we have a question. I don't know how to pronounce this. Is it Kadiang? I'm hoping I'm not spoiling a name, but she wants to know, how long should a resume be?
Okay, great question. A resume should never be more than 2 pages. So if you are somebody who has less than 15 years experience, you could do a 1-page resume. If you've got more than 15 years, then a 2-page resume, but 2 pages is the maximum. Remember, it's a summary. It's really just meant to it's not a list of everything you've ever done. It's a highlight of the top 10 things that you feel that employer needs to know. So traditionally, when we receive a resume, it's literally a list of everything. So, I left school at 18, and my first job, I worked in a fabric store and I was an assistant. I put that on there and I worked there for 2 weeks. It's not that. That's your CV. The resume is the last few jobs, not everything you've ever done, but the last couple of jobs that really are going to be of importance and value to the next employer. That's why I say it's very future focused. It's very skills driven, so that 2 pages should be more than enough. In fact, really, you should be able in the first paragraph to tell me why I should interview you. So you've got, use the English language. It's a beautiful, rich, deep language. Use a thesaurus. Try not to be too repetitive. Don't be too generic, but get to the point. What are you selling? Why should I interview you? That's what the resume needs to answer.
I listen, I have so much stories because I find that we tend to like to tell stories by our culture. It's nature for us to do so. And that translates into when we ask for, like, I'm actually in search of someone to do a project, and I specifically ask the person to do something and to give it to me in bullet points.
Mm-hmm.
They gave me a 7-paragraph email.
Wow.
And that tells me that you're not listening to what I have to say, because I specifically ask you for bullet points.
Yeah. And it's so true. I mean, now a resume can tell a story, but it should tell a story in a very dynamic, interesting way. And yes, be concise. If you think about the job market, it's ferocious at the moment. We ran a vacancy for one of our clients a couple of weeks ago, and we got 1,000 applications, which means that we have to review 1,000 resumes for one position. 1,000. So why is your resume going to stand out? Remember, these are virtual. They're online resumes now. As I open it, first 3 or 4 lines, I'm going to make a decision about whether I interview or not. I'm not reading every line, every page to find out that, you were in Girl Guides when you were 11 and, you volunteered in a roti shop when you were 19. That's not what you're selling. You're selling me, tell me up front, first line, why should I interview you? Right? This is why you can tell a story. But I often liken a resume to a brochure. So if you think about something like, this is a long time. You might be too young to remember this, but in the olden days, if we wanted to book a holiday, we would go into a travel agency and we would pick up brochures, maybe a brochure of a cruise.
What's that?
I know, right? Can you imagine? Or a brochure of a trip to Disney World. And you open the brochure and there's a couple of really exciting photos of Mickey and the rides and 2 or 3 key points, 400 buffets and 36,000 rides. And, it's like key points. It's not the whole experience. It's never the entire Disney thing, but it's enough to get you to book the holiday. So it's really about your brand, building a brand through your resume that makes me a recruiter or me an employer, an HR manager go, wow, this person is somebody I need to meet. They have exactly what we're looking for. It's not easy to do, which is why you have to invest time and energy and really, really get a resume right, which is why so many resumes are appalling, because people don't put the time and effort in.
What's also very interesting is we as consumers of content, we shift through so many videos. And after I actually have the data. After the first 10 seconds, most people decide if they're going to go on or not.
There you go.
And don't understand why we as job seekers can't translate that into the resume. So, we will put in the comments below, a location on it online that you can get some tips from Regency, and we will also share an email address. Lara will share that with us. And when you go into comments, you could actually sign up for our emails, and we will send you all of these things because there's a lot of information, and I know it's a lot to actually digest all at once. Right. So the next direction we're going to head to is the cover letter. So I have so many questions about it, but I'm going to ask it after this break. We'll be right back.
But that was like my first experience with money. Very, very first experience.
I've been in banking since I was a teenager.
And welcome back to Straight Off the Bat. Thank you for joining us. This is a show that covers all the information required to understand financial literacy and education. You're not going to find these conversations anywhere else. So make sure to smash that subscribe button, because I know you're watching this on YouTube and you'll want to come back, because we always have something that you need to learn about. Because who doesn't need to learn about money? Like, seriously, who doesn't? Today, we're talking about strategies for relaunching your career during COVID-19 in Trinidad and Tobago. I have the great privilege to talk to Miss Lara Quentrall-Thomas. She is the founder of Regency, Recruitment and Resources, and with decades of experience in the human resource industry, I feel like it's time for us to pick a brain on resume writing and cover letters. So if you missed the conversation that happened a couple minutes ago, you might have to rewind when we finish this live. But specifically, we want to talk about cover letters. First and foremost, do you need one?
Okay.
That's the first question.
So good. Okay. I would say yes, you do need one. But of course, now it's an email, right? So most of the time you are applying via email. So your email to a potential employer or HR manager, whoever's asked you to send their resume, should be formatted the same way you would have formatted a traditional cover letter. So let's just quickly look at the email. First thing is the title of the email should be explicit about what you're doing. So I get emails all the time that say my CV. Well, who are you? I don't know who you are, right? Job, vacancy. No, you're a professional, you're a grown-up. Use your language, use your words. So the title of the title of the email will be application for vacancy number ABC administrative assistant, or application for vacancy engineering technician. And in our case, we put a reference to our jobs. So you would put the job reference, perhaps in brackets. If it was something that you saw in the newspaper, you would put that. So then that's in the title of your email, so that the reader knows exactly what they are getting. Remember, I get 1,000 emails, and of those 1,000, 900 will say CV application. It's just so frustrating. Anywho, so then the email itself, the body of the email, you write it as if you were writing a proper cover letter. So you would put Lara Quentrall-Thomas, Chairman, Regency, Recruitment and Resources, put the date, formatting like a proper cover letter. Dear Miss Quentrall-Thomas, paragraph 1, indicate what you're applying for, where you heard about the vacancy. So was it online? Was it a job board, newspaper, through a friend? Maybe it's a referral. If there's a specific job. If it's not a specific job and you're just sending a general application, then you can mention that. You can say that I am interested in seeking an opportunity in financial services or in the energy sector. And so that's your first paragraph. 1 line, 2 lines. The second paragraph speaks to why we should consider you for that job. So essentially, you're extracting 3 or 4 key things from the resume, but they should be tied to the job description or the job ad. So if in a job vacancy, we have specified 5 years experience, a bachelor's degree and fluent Spanish, let's say, in your second paragraph, you will respond to those 3 requirements. So I have a bachelor's degree, I have 6 years experience. Maybe you don't have fluent Spanish, but I have basic knowledge of Spanish and I'm pursuing advanced Spanish training. If we ask for something that you don't have, but you have an alternative that is as good as or better. So for example, you may not have a degree, but you might have ACCA, or you might have a professional qualification that is the equivalent of an academic degree. Let us know that. So you go through the job, the client has asked for 4 or 5 key things, you respond to those in your second paragraph. In your third paragraph, You indicate that your resume is attached, as well as anything else they've asked for. They may ask for a copy of your academic qualifications or a reference letter. Some places ask for a birth certificate, although I don't know why, police certificate of good character, whatever they've asked for. And then you indicate your availability for an interview, thank them for the opportunity, and you sign off yours sincerely, your full name, and then your email address and your phone number. That is a professional application for a job. Not, Miss Lara, my CV's attached, call me. That instantly gets my hackles up. So treat the email that you're sending as if it were the old-fashioned written cover letter. Now, of course, in a lot of cases, you might be applying through a website. So you're just uploading an attachment, so you don't have the opportunity to do as much narrative. In that case, you can reduce it, get to the point, but still keep it professional. No abbreviations, no informal conversation. It is a business communication. It's a business correspondence. So make sure you use English properly, you use proper words, and you speak correctly and formally in your introduction, because you're introducing yourself to me. And don't say, you know, one of my key skills is paying attention to detail, and then spell the word detail wrong. You know, these things matter. So take your time, craft it properly, get a second pair of eyes to look it over, the same with the resume. And then when you're comfortable that it's professional, it's proper, it's appropriate, then you hit send.
So basically, what I'm getting is people need to read more.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, read more. Stop watching so much television and read, not just magazines, but read anything you can get your hands on. Reading is an essential skill for building your vocabulary. So yes, I would certainly agree with that.
And do you find that a lot of people, because based on what you're seeing, people tend to get into this, I just need a job now, no matter what. And they don't realize that it translates with their application.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give to that person who isn't even thinking about the formality reading? They just want to get a job. What is your advice to them?
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, I've also been unemployed in my life, so I know the anxiety that goes with not working and obviously needing to pay your bills. And I totally empathize. But remember, you are still a professional. The only people I really give a little bit of a blight to are young people who are inexperienced, who don't know any better. But, you know, even graduates coming out of UE or coming out of colleges who send applications that are too chitty-chatty, too informal, spelling errors, that offends me. You have a degree. You've written theses, you've written papers, you've done team projects and presentations. You have to treat your resume with reverence, with respect. Treat the application process the same way. So yes, you might be desperate, but it doesn't mean that you can't take a couple of minutes to craft a proper, even if it's very short, craft a formal, professional, polite application, asking for help. You can say, you know, I really appreciate you reviewing my resume. I do really need a job at the moment, so any help you give me would be appreciated. Not begging, but certainly you can underscore the fact that things are a little difficult and you do need some help. But I would really encourage people to take the time to do a proper resume, to do a proper cover letter, a proper email, because at the end of the day, if I'm going to hire you or I'm going to recommend you to my clients, which is what we do at Regency, of course, I want them to know, and I want to know that you speak English well, you write it well, you know how to use a computer, you know, you've got the skills that we need to be in a modern workplace. I mean, there are exceptions. I'm not talking about people who might be hired, you know, to work in a custodian position or something of that nature, which of course is a different conversation. But if we're talking about professionals, yes, things could be tight and it could be difficult for you, but I still would expect you to put a bit of effort into crafting a professional, formal email and resume, so that this is your one chance to impress me. And remember, there are thousands of people who are looking, so you have to stand out above, stand out in the crowd. As you say, it's important to not be that casual gaming Netflix chilling vibe person. When you're applying for a job, this is now your job, and you treat it with that reverence.
I definitely see a lot of similarities with branding because you have to, as you mentioned, you're getting all basically hundreds, thousands of applications.
Yep.
So how do you actually stand out in a positive way?
That's
And
right.
One of the questions we have in the comments comes, if the job ad doesn't have the name of the hiring manager, how do you address the cover letter?
Lovely. Thank you for that question. So there's a couple of things you can do. One, if the company is named, call the company and find out who the hiring manager is and ask for a name. Make sure you get the spelling right. I have had so many emails sent to me where my name was just completely mangled. So make sure you get it right. If they won't give it to you, you can check the website. A lot of companies do post their executive or their senior team leaders' names. And if you can't get it from either of those sources, then you can just say, good afternoon, dear sir, dear madam. Well, attention hiring manager. It's not ideal. It should be personalized. But if you can't get that and they won't give it to you, you can't find it, then it's fine to use hiring manager. If you do get a name, as I say, make sure you spell it right. But if it's a woman's name, don't assume she's married. Ask, is she Miss or Mrs.? Again, because my name is double-barreled, I get Mrs. all the time. I'm not married, never been married, no interest in being married. So it's kind of offensive that you assume I've taken a man's name. This is my name, 100%, inherited proudly. So again, put a little bit of effort, see if you can find out. And if they won't give it to you, then attention hiring manager's fine.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, as somebody who has, had to go into sales, I Google everything because we're in a world now where a lot of people have their information online, and LinkedIn has been a saving grace for my business where I'm not too sure. So I just go and I type in the company's name, and you actually see all the employees and their roles within the organization. So that's also something you can do. So thank you so much for that question. Now, you mentioned earlier about, volunteering because there's this gap that's going to happen for a lot of people during the pandemic. They may have lost their jobs and they're not sure what to do in that gap. And I saw this ongoing conversation about people just wasn't able to wasn't in a mental capacity to do anything during lockdown. So sometimes they may not have done anything. So what does that person do when that gap exists and they don't have anything to attach to that, but they lost their job? Any advice on that?
Well, one of the things I would say is that volunteering, it's been shown to make you happy. So if you are finding yourself in a bit of a rut, depressed, anxious because of COVID, job loss, and so on, reaching out to your community. And as I say, it could be on a small scale. It could be in your church, in your temple, in your community. Maybe there's a family in your community that's much worse off than you. Maybe there's an old lady in your village who nobody goes to visit, so you could go and visit her a couple of times a week and read to her, or talk about the news. But those little acts of kindness actually make you happy. So apart from helping other people, there is proven evidence that volunteering, getting involved in goodwill and helping others makes you a happier person. I don't know if it's endorphins or what the science is behind it, but it does build your happiness, your stamina, your resilience. You learn new skills as well, because you may find yourself on a project that you never knew you could do, and suddenly you're organizing a fundraising barbecue, or doing something like that you didn't know you were designing tickets, you didn't know you had that skill. One of the things I've learned during COVID is I have real skill at designing. I found Canva, and I've been doing tickets for my Rotary Club and flyers, and I absolutely love it. And that's not my skill set at all. So you learn new skills again, which then can help you in your job search. And also you network. So just being out, going to your village hall and So again, vaccination is one kind of current example. There's lots of calls for volunteers for vaccination. There's a call right now for people to help at the Hyatt over the next few weeks. Go spend a couple of days, you meet people and you let people know, hey, I'm looking for work. Do you know of anything? Take a couple copies of your resume. Maybe just do a little simple business card, print it on off your computer, or have your information on your phone. Volunteering is a fantastic place to network. I have got business from volunteering. I have made amazing friends, best friends forever through volunteering. So it's not just a nice thing to do. More of us should. It's important that we give back to our country and our community, but there's actual benefits to you. And one of the things I think that's so important in the whole COVID experience is that you really have to look for sources of positivity and joy, because otherwise the despair is overwhelming and you just sort of can barely get off the couch. And it takes resolve, it takes effort. Maybe it's a next door neighbor, maybe it's your pastor, maybe it's a friend online. I've reconnected with a couple of friends online during COVID that I hadn't spoken to in years through LinkedIn. And it's just people looking to reconnect, people reaching out. So there wasn't any particular purpose behind it, but we had a couple of video chats, and it really reminded me of people in my life that I hadn't spoken to for a while. So I've actually made a bit of an effort in the last couple of months to pick up the phone and call people that I haven't spoken to in a long time, not just Zooming everybody all the time. So it really is, it requires some effort. It requires a little bit of, forcing yourself to find the joy and find the positivity. Maybe it's just, for me, I get a lot of joy out of animals. I am somebody who cherishes pets, so I get a lot of joy. My cat has been my absolute savior during COVID because I live alone and my family's not here. So she's been just an absolute joy. And reading books, find something that gives you joy and helps you get out of that despair. But volunteering is a fantastic way to, pull yourself up a little bit, put on a bit of makeup, put on a bra, leave the house, meet with some new people, do something positive. You feel better. You feel better about yourself. And that then in turn comes across when you interview. I can see that energy. I can see that you're really trying to stay positive, even though it's hard times. That's important. That's impressive. And that's what employers look for. They want that resilience. They want that positive attitude. If you are doom and gloom and desperation, I know it's tough, but that translates in an interview. And that's not, people want to bring positivity into their organizations. So it takes some mental resilience, but it's important to try.
That is some great advice and a reminder in a world that we're always texting each other. I have a cousin in New York. She just says, pour a glass of wine and let's have a FaceTime call. And after those calls, I do feel different. And the idea of volunteering is something that I want to give more effort to. And we have a question in the comments, as well as I really want to address the after you've landed the interview, what happens in terms of you need to get prepped for that interview, and online interviews are definitely different to in-person interviews. So we need some advice and tips on that. So we're going to get to that right after the break. We'll see you there. Welcome back to Straight Off the Bat, a show that covers the need to revive, survive, and adapt to the new normal of COVID-19. If you missed any of the discussion that we had previously, you can actually click on the links. We've discussed things around your CV, your resume. Did you know that those things are not the same? Mind blown. So Lara's here to give us some insight because she has decades of experience in the human resource industry. And we've covered things about, there's this gap within resume writing and what employers are looking for. But we want to shift the conversation over to what happens after your resume is good to go and you have landed that online interview. What happens? What are the tips that you can give to individuals, especially when you have kids in the background making noise, a neighbor blazing music next door? It's very unnerving when there are a lot of things you can't control. So give us 1 or 2 tips on online interviews, Lara.
Okay, so yes, it's important to prepare for an online interview the same way you would for a real interview in person. So you dress, you put on your face. Men should shave or groom. You should not look like you just woke up, right? Your lower half may be pajama bottoms, but the upper half that we're seeing should be a shirt and tie or a proper jacket. Certainly expect you to be properly groomed. And what's really important, as you said, is to set this is to create the setting in your home that allows you to focus entirely on the interview. So wear headphones. I got these for $100. These are gaming headphones, I think. So they're not, you don't have to buy super fancy, expensive ones. But what it does is it cuts out all external noise and allows you to focus. Make sure you tell the people in your home, kids, husband, granny, whoever's there, that you are going to be in an interview. And so could they all, I don't know, go and play in the garden or go in another room, or you lock yourself in a bedroom, bathroom, wherever. I've interviewed people in their cars because it's the only quiet space they have. So, you can let an employer know, listen, this is my situation. I've got 5 kids at home or 13 dogs or whatever it is. The best place for me to do that, for me to interview, is going to be in my car, or I'm going to be going into a quiet private room. It's important to find that space. As I said, if you're looking for a job, this is now your job. So you need to sort of set a space in your home, a corner that looks professional, looks like an office, has proper lighting. Natural lighting is best for an interview, but certainly you need to make sure there's light on your face so that the interviewer can see you. Make sure you've got a great camera, you've got good audio, reliable internet. I was doing a presentation for a client yesterday, and we've had some challenges in this part of the country with internet the last couple of days, and it just kept dropping, and it was horrendous. I have to say, though, for a year and a half, my internet's been great. So it was just this one day, but make sure you've got a good connection. You also should ask in advance, how long is it going to be? Is there anything that you need to prepare? So we have now started, because it's all virtual, we do things like we may ask you to prepare a presentation before the interview, because it's very easy for you just to share some slides off your screen. So if you're a senior person or a management candidate, you may be asked to prepare a presentation on solving a particular problem the company has, or how you deal with particular issues around the job. So you need to know in advance, how long is it going to be? Who's going to interview me? There are panel interviews, even virtually. So you need to know who's going to be in the room, how long it's going to take, what do I need to prepare, what do I need to bring. So, for example, if you're going for a job vacancy or an interview as a designer or something in the arts world or the PR world, then maybe you have an opportunity to showcase some of your work, because you can now share your screen. So you can let them know, would it be okay if I prepared a presentation with some of the previous ads I've worked on, or the previous designs I've done for websites or whatever. So use the virtual platform to your advantage, because it does give you, maybe you've done a short video with some animation. You can show them this now. It's fantastic. But make sure that your environment is properly set up. Of course, you can find different backgrounds. So if you don't have a super nice, clean home background, or there's lots of photos or personal clutter, then use a background that looks professional, not one with, I don't know, giraffes, or, get a proper corporate background. But the important thing is to, same way you would with a real interview, do your research, make sure you understand the company, the industry, their competitors, make sure you've researched the job, you know what they're looking for, tailor your questions specifically to the job. So you treat it the same way you would a real interview in person, just with a few tweaks for the virtual scenario.
Yeah, it's interesting because even setting up for this live, my neighbor is making a set of noise outside. So it's just like sometimes you get this anxiety and also distracted at the noise that's happening. So it's so important to set the tone, and you're absolutely right. You know, you are setting up a space that you're eventually going to be employed. So you have to put aside that space for remote working because, as you mentioned earlier, ain't going nowhere anywhere fast.
Yeah, and there's
We
been
here for a while.
there's been so many brilliant things online. People in the middle of a Zoom call with a client and their husband walks behind them in their underpants, and these sorts of things can happen. That's why it's important that you let people in your home know, I'm going into a job interview. Please, if you need a coffee, if you need a snack, get it now, because for the next hour, I need the kitchen to be empty, or the living room, or whatever it is. People in your home should be working with you to help you get a job. I know it's not always easy, but as much as possible, let them know. I was in a meeting the other day with a woman who had a very young daughter. When I say young, I think she was about 6 months old. And the father just kept bringing her and plonking her on the lap. And this woman was doing a presentation. And I thought, could you not hold her for half an hour? Why every 2 minutes she has to be with mummy? So there are challenges. I appreciate that. But let your family help you if they can to be successful.
So true. Help is so important. We have a question from Rachel. She wants to know, what do you recommend in terms of reaching out via LinkedIn to current employees of organizations to get a glimpse into a company?
I think that's a great idea, Rachel. So let's say you've applied for a job at Regency, let's say, and you see Kevin McLean, who's our candidate services manager. You could absolutely connect with him and say, look, I've applied for a position, or I'm being interviewed for a position at Regency. Could you tell me a bit about the culture? What should I expect? I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. They, of course, can refuse to give you that information, or they may turn you completely off the company. But it's in your interest to do the research, to get the information so you make an informed decision. Remember, an interview is a two-way conversation. You also have the right and should ask questions, gather information so that you make an informed decision, so that it is the best opportunity for you, and it's a good step to make. It's the right step to make. So yeah, I think that's a fantastic suggestion. And you can let the company know that you've done that. I think it's important to be totally open and honest. So let's say you spoke to Kevin and he told you, I don't know, everybody in the company has to have blue hair. And then you come to the interview with me and you say, look, I was chatting with Kevin on LinkedIn and he said everybody has to have blue hair. Can you explain that to me? Why is that part of your culture? We can have a conversation. I think it's important to be honest and let people know where you've got your information from. But yeah, it's a good suggestion, Rachel.
Awesome. And we're wrapping up now with the final question. Given the shift in the environment and the move to digital, what are the most popular positions employers are seeking right now? And what are some of the current trends in the work environment with regards to new skills?
Okay, so the hard skills really haven't changed. So we still look for people with the degrees and the vocational training in their various disciplines. The soft skills have changed a little bit. Communication, effective communication, is now more important than ever because you're not doing it in person. So you don't have the advantage of body language. So your written and spoken word is so, so important now. Your empathy, your ability to really connect with people of different experiences is so critical. As I mentioned earlier, your resilience, your ability to bounce back, to regroup, rebuild is going to be something that a lot of employers are looking for. Your digital skills, without question. So, when we get an application and we shortlist somebody for a job, we check you online. We go and look at your social media pages. So if you're a professional and you're not on LinkedIn, or your LinkedIn profile is no photograph, hasn't been updated for 5 years, something's wrong there. And it doesn't matter what discipline you're in. You have to be aware of the tools that a modern employer works with, a modern employee works with. So a lot of the skills that we need now are connected to digital literacy, digital leadership, and so on, but also a lot more around your own ability to be resilient, to be creative. You know, I was talking to a partner in the UK a couple of days ago. We're doing some recruitment for a particular sector that was being really badly hit by COVID. And something like 80% of the people who used to work in that industry are now Uber drivers in the UK. And these are professionals with years of experience, degrees, MBAs. They're Uber drivers because that's what they could get. So we want to see during COVID, what did you do to make a living, to stay relevant, to stay connected, you know, to retain your resilience and your buoyancy. So I think there are so many new things that you have to be able to demonstrate in this new normal. Your digital technical literacy is going to be critical, as well as your empathy and leadership, your creativity and innovation, and your resilience and your ability to, you know, get back on the horse.
Great advice. All right, Lara. So we're going to wrap up now. And during the time of lockdown, it has been, if you had a graph, you know, in the professional up and down, you have
That's
hopes and
right.
dreams, and then they dash, and then you go, oh, it's going to be great. And then it dashes
Yep.
again.
Yep.
What words of advice, support are you going to give to that person who is in that position of, gosh, this will never end?
Well, yes, I hear you. We all thought we were out of it, and then we went back, and then we were out of it, and then we went back. I think we have to recognize that COVID is going to be with us for a while. There's no end in sight. It's going to be with us for a while. Stop waiting for it to end and start thinking about what you can do while it's here. Because even when we're all vaccinated, there's still going to be some version of it around, and, you know, who knows how long it's going to be. So the time to make a change is now. The time to get off the couch is now, because there are opportunities out there. There are things happening. Businesses are reopening. Some parts of the economy are reopening. Maybe not your sector, but maybe there's something else you can do. So I really want to encourage people to try and find sources of positivity and joy. Find strength somewhere. Your religious text, your music, your movies, your cat, your boyfriend, whoever. You know, find positive energy and get out there. Get online, talk to people, attend events, because there are things happening. The economy is reopening slowly, cautiously, but it is happening. So who knows? I think that this whole new world is fascinating, exciting. There are so many new opportunities. And really do your research. Find out what are the skills that employers want now. Where can I learn those skills? And start building build your resume. Improve your skills, you know, make the changes that you need to make so that you're relevant and impactful and interesting to employers when it all eventually reopens. So don't wait for it. The time is now.
Well, thank you so much, Lara. On that positive note, we're going to end off. Thanks again to Lara Quentrall-Thomas from the Regency Recruitment and Resources Company. She shared so much insight today. We covered strategy for relaunching your career during COVID-19 in Trinidad Tobago. I mean, one of my biggest takeaways is I was using CV and resume wrong. Life changed forever, guys. Changed forever. If you missed that, don't worry, just head over to the links in the comments and sign up for the show, because we send this information to you directly to your inbox. And always be sure to like and follow us, especially on LinkedIn. One of the biggest takeaways from these conversations as well is LinkedIn is a professional network site for you when you're looking for that job. So go on, like the page. I'm awake. All right. Okay, I'm done. Thanks so much for joining us today, and I will see you soon. Bye, guys.